Hello everyone. You have come to the channel, World's Most Expensive Dog Breeds. I am very happy to have the opportunity to share interesting and meaningful content with all of you. In today's video, we will explore the topic, Australian Shepherd Grooming Tips. Proper care, beautiful every day. A topic that I believe will bring you new perspectives and valuable lessons. Let's get started now. I still remember the day I first brought my first dog home. An Australian Shepherd with ash gray fur. His intelligent eyes shining with intelligence and curiosity. I named him Candy, because at first sight, my heart was melted by his cuteness. At first, I thought that raising a dog was just about feeding it, giving it water, and taking it for a walk. But after just a few days, I fell into a fur crisis. The whole house, my clothes, and even the sofa were covered in a thin layer of fur-like dust. Candy was still well behaved, but I started to panic. Am I doing something wrong? Do I need to take it to the pet spa every week? How can I groom its fur to look as beautiful as the pictures of show dogs have seen? I went online, searched for all kinds of videos, read all kinds of blogs and forums. And then, came across a video with the simple title, Basic Grooming Guide for Australian Shepherd Dogs. The first image that appeared was a man introducing and a woman gently brushing the fur of a dog named Zach. Zach's eyes were as gentle as cotton balls. I don't know why, but I was drawn to that video as if I had found a compass for my journey. From the gentle words to each brushing action, each advice on how to use the scissors, how to shape the tail, every detail made me realize, dog care is not simply beautification, it is an art, and a journey to build a deep connection with your pet. I started learning. And of course I failed. The first time I tried using a raked comb, Candy ran away. The first time I used scissors, the hair was cut too much, looking like a dog that had just had its head shaved for military service. But I didn't give up. I went back to the video, rewinding each part over and over again. I realized that the most valuable thing from this video was not just the technique, but the patience and love that the trainer and caretaker showed in each action. From a clumsy person, I gradually learned how to hold scissors properly, how to check the ear hair so as not to accidentally cut off the precious hair, how to bathe the dog without making him jump like he was having a nightmare. And most of all, I began to feel the change in the relationship between me and Ko. He trusted me more, was happy every time I took out the comb, and lay still when I trimmed his legs or cleaned his ears. It was from that experience that I decided to write down this journey, not only to tell my own story, but also so that anyone who is feeling confused, struggling among thousands of instructional videos online, can find a real, emotional map, honest, understandable, and close. So if you're reading this, you're probably like me back then, a first-time dog owner, full of confusion and anxiety. But rest assured, we'll go through each step, each tool, each awkward but loving story together. And you'll see, as long as you're patient and loving, your dog, even if he's not a show dog champion, will always shine in his own way. Taking care of a dog is not easy. When I saw show dogs walking proudly on stage, their hair silky and shiny, each strand reflecting the light, I used to think, I guess I only need to brush them a few times a week. But after only a few weeks of living with Ko, I began to understand a simple but profound truth. Taking care of a dog is not like taking care of a cute toy, but like taking care of a living being with a soul, a mood, and days when its hair falls out uncontrollably. One time, I invited some friends over to my house. I had cleaned the house thoroughly beforehand, even using a high-powered vacuum cleaner. But after only 15 minutes, my best friend, who is extremely clean and has a mild allergy to pet hair, sneezed so hard that I thought he had the winter flu. I just laughed it off and thought to myself, I'll have to find a way to control this furry fight. Many people raise dogs with the mentality, love is enough. But love without knowledge can sometimes become a nuisance. I have seen many dogs raised in a house with full amenities, but their fur is matted. Their ears smell. Their nails are long and tear the carpet. And every time they go out, they fight with their humans. The problem is not that dogs are naughty or dirty, it is that we do not really understand how to take care of them properly. I started to look more seriously. Scrolling through hundreds of videos, I realized, there are many detailed instructions, but rarely any content that shares the emotions of the caregiver. They often talk about techniques, about which scissors are good, which shampoo smells good, But few people talk about the anxiety when they first hold the scissors. About the disappointment when the dog's hair is uneven after an hour of bending over. Or about the small joy when the dog looks at them with trusting eyes. So I decided to learn not only techniques, but also to observe, listen and empathize. I realized that each dog is an individual, with its own preferences and sensitivities. Candy, for example, absolutely hated the sound of the dryer. At first, I kept forcing him to stay still, which led to stress and resistance. But when I tried turning on the dryer first, letting him approach slowly, and then sitting next to him while he dried, he began to calm down. From such a seemingly small thing, I learned that care is not about imposing, but companionship. Then there are the ears. There were days when I intended to trim lightly, but my hands were shaking, my eyes were dim because of the poor lighting, and I accidentally cut too deep into the fur near the ear. Luckily, it didn't hurt, but afterwards I was haunted by it to the point of losing sleep. I know what people say, the more you love V, the more you fear hurting. But from that mistake, I learned a valuable lesson, and also began to respect every warning in the videos I watched. If you don't know what you're doing, stop. Don't cut your dog's ears. There were days when I would sit for hours just to watch the way Candy moved after being bathed and brushed. The way it trotted around the yard. Its tail wagging. Its fur flying in the afternoon sun. It was an indescribable feeling, as if I had just done something very beautiful. Very right. Even though no one praised me. No one saw me, just me, and it. An invisible thread was gradually woven between the person and the pet, with patience, with effort, and with each careful brush stroke. Inexpensive tools, but worth the journey. After several failed attempts at grooming KO with a plastic comb I bought at the grocery store, I realized one thing: not all tools are created equal. Behind simple names like comb, scissors, brush, lies a world of techniques and subtle differences. And only when you step into that world, you will understand why people can spend millions of dong just to buy a pair of scissors. But don't worry. You don't have to spend a fortune to get started. I was once like you, on a budget. Not sure I had the patience to commit to long-term dog grooming. So I've tried, failed, and come up with a list of essentials, no gimmicks, no expensive items, that work wonders. Rake comb, probably the first tool you should buy. It looks simple, but it is the secret weapon to remove the layer of undercoat that is hard to see with the naked eye. If you don't remove this layer of fur, you will see your dog itchy, scratching constantly, and hair loss all year round. I once bought a rake for just over 100,000, a wooden comb with metal teeth. And the feeling of pulling through the tangled undercoat for the first time and seeing a bunch of hair fall out is really satisfying. Pin brush sounds modern, but is really just a long, soft-toothed comb, specifically for brushing areas like legs, belly, or rump, areas where long hair is prone to tangles but is sensitive. You don't want to use a hard metal comb to pull across your dog's soft belly. I choose a brush with a non-slip handle, is affordable, and is best of all, easy to clean. Greyhound comb sounds fancy, but is actually a wide-toothed comb, perfect for removing small tangles after a bath. I've tried using a human comb as a substitute, but it didn't work at all. Dog combs have a different elasticity, and the teeth are designed to stretch out so as not to break the hair or hurt the skin. Thinning shears. These are the golden tool if you've never held a dog clipper before. I used to cut too much with straight scissors, and KO had to live with a sawtooth haircut for almost 2 weeks. Thinning shears are different in that they only cut about 30 to 50% of the hair per cut, allowing you to cut and fix without worrying about ruining the style. Not to mention, when you need to create a dog tail smile or tidy up the feet, thinning shears are extremely easy to control. Small trimming scissors. I bought the curved blade, round tip scissors for the legs, face and ears. These are extremely sensitive areas, so the non-pointed tip of the scissors is a must for safety. Don't spare a few tens of thousands for your pet's safety. Slicker brush, probably the tool I use the most. Used to backcomb the coat before clipping, or to check for tangles after rake brushing. The bristles are soft. The teeth are slightly curved. And most importantly, it doesn't irritate the dog. Candy is very cooperative when I use the slicker, probably because it feels like a massage. In addition, there are a few extra but important items. Grooming apron. Anti-slip rubber gloves when bathing. Dryer with noise reduction mode, especially necessary for dogs that are afraid of loud noises. Dremel scissors to file your nails, if you are not handy. This is safer than nail clippers. I used to think that these things were only for professional show people. But in fact, if you take care of your pet at home properly, you will save millions of dong each month from spa services. And more importantly, you are building a bond with your pet through each brushing and trimming. When you touch their fur with love and understanding, they will feel it too. And the word, pet, will gradually become, companion. A bath day for Candy, water, soap and patience. It was a sunny afternoon. Not too hot and not too cold, the perfect weather for a dog bath. I had prepared myself since early in the morning. Made a list of tools. Laid out a towel, arranged scissors, comb, hair dryer, and picked out my favorite shampoo. But then, looking at KO lying comfortably on the floor, I suddenly felt guilty. Did he know that today was the bathing festival day? I walked over gently and called softly, "Go take a bath, son." The first reaction is to turn away. I took the treat and shook it a few times. Those floppy ears started to perk up. A few steps later, it followed me to the yard where I had prepared a portable bathtub with hot and cold water pipes just like in the video I had seen. The first thing I did was to brush him with a rake, like a warm-up before a bath. V pulled gently from his shoulders to his hips, then his rump and hindquarters. The downy, matted fur rose up in clumps and fell to the ground like a thin snowflake. It felt good, like I was helping him shed his skin. V had to do it slowly, though, because if I pulled too hard, his skin would turn red and he would run away. After brushing, I rinsed the water. Not cold or hot, just warm enough to keep Candy from shivering, but cool enough to make her feel comfortable. I started at her feet, V then worked my way up to her back, neck, and head. This made her feel safer. I especially avoided spraying directly into her ears and eyes. A previous mistake had left her afraid of water for a week. I grabbed the bright white shampoo, the exact kind recommended in the video. It's specifically for white hair like legs, chest, and neck. I massaged it in thoroughly, leaving it on for about 3 minutes as instructed. Meanwhile, I used my regular shampoo for my body and back, the oatmeal-based kind. Gentle and smelling like rice milk. I rubbed it in gently, in small circles, like I was massaging myself. Candy just stood there, eyes half closed as if meditating. After 3 minutes, I began rinsing. This was an important step, because if not rinsed thoroughly, the remaining shampoo could cause itching, dandruff, or even rashes. I ran my hand down the length of the dog's neck to his tail. Feeling the water run through his fur, it felt so real, so alive. It was also at this point that I saw every flaw that had previously gone unnoticed, a few red spots from scratching, or a tangled fur under his belly. After shampooing, I use conditioner. I use the heavy management conditioner, thicker, helps smooth and hold the hair. I apply it evenly, avoiding the head and ears, then leave it for a few minutes. In the meantime, I take the opportunity to chat with Candy, nothing big. Just a few sentences like, "Good boy," "Almost done," or "You'll have a treat later." I don't know if it understands, but I believe that emotions are something that any living thing can feel, even if we don't share the same language. Then rinse thoroughly. I dry with a thick towel, soak up excess water, then carry Candy onto the drying table. Blow drying is a sport unto itself. It requires both patience and strategy. Candy is afraid of the noise of the machine, so I always keep it far away, turn it on the quietest setting, and blow dry from a distance. I stroke, blow dry, and brush with the slicker. The fur dries, puffs up, becomes smooth and shiny. The soft layers of fur appear under the light, making me wonder, isn't this what people call small happiness? Once Candy was completely dry, I did the final touches, brushing her coat through, checking her paw pads, cleaning her ears, and preparing her for a light trim if needed. But I didn't do any cutting that day, just to keep her clean, smelling nice, and feeling good. I remember that afternoon well, when I opened the gate to let KO run around the garden. He rolled around on the grass, his tail wagging, his fur flying like waves. And I, who had just spent nearly 2 hours just bathing and brushing a dog, did not feel tired. On the contrary, I felt that I was living very well, very fully. Because pet care is more than just a job. It's a way of life. Mistakes that almost made me lose my dog's trust. I used to think that if I just followed the video, used the right tools, and took care of each step, everything would be perfect. But reality is never like theory. Especially when you are dealing with a living being with emotions, reactions, and limitations. I made a lot of mistakes when I first started, and if someone had told me about them, I probably could have avoided some stressful moments. Even a little hurt for both me and Candy. One of the most common mistakes is using straight scissors to trim hair in sensitive areas. I used to think that straight scissors would cut evenly and neatly. So I used them to trim the fur around the tail and hind legs. But the scissors were too sharp. And one mistake could cut into the skin, especially for dogs with curly hair or thin skin. That day, I had just put the scissors on when KO was startled. Turned his head and hissed slightly, a rare reaction from a normally docile dog. I stopped immediately, my hands shaking, and from that day on, I understood. Thinning shears not an easy choice, but a must for beginners. The next mistake comes from spray water directly on the dog's head. Many people, including myself in the past, think that the head needs to be cleaned as thoroughly as the body. But spraying water hard on the face not only scares the dog, but also easily gets water in the ear, causing inflammation. I witnessed Candy shaking her head continuously for 2 days after a bad spray. From then on, I switched to using a damp cloth to wipe your face, ears and neck, then gently rinse from forehead down, avoiding direct. A seemingly small but extremely harmful mistake is shampoo not rinse clean. Once, I thought rinsing until the suds were gone would be enough. But a few hours after the bath, I noticed that Candy was constantly scratching, and her skin was red in small patches. It turned out that the shampoo left under her thick fur was causing irritation. Since then, I have spent more time rinsing, swiping water over each area, checking with my hands to see if it is still slippery. Sometimes, I even use an extra bottle of clean water for a separate final rinse. Although it is a bit of a hassle, job not dry completely, I also paid the price. That day, I rushed out, thinking that 80% of the fur was dry enough. But just a few hours later, I saw Candy sneezing, curled up, breathing lightly. I panicked and took him to the vet. Luckily it was just a slight cold. But the lesson was very hard, must be completely dry, especially the chest and abdomen where it is easy to absorb water and retain moisture for a long time. From then on, I always check carefully with my hand, touching close to the hair root to make sure there is no moisture left. Another mistake I made, and many others have made, was try to brush tangled hair with force. Once I brushed my lower belly, a prone area, without any spray or hand support. The Candy hurt so much that I cried out and avoided it for the rest of the day. I learned that when hair is too tangled, use your hands to untangle each section. Combine with detangling spray, and only brush when it is soft. Nothing will make a dog lose trust in you faster than the pain you unintentionally cause. Finally, there is a fault that is not technical, but psychological, impatient. Many times I was impatient and wanted to finish quickly. So I did things in a hurry, spoke loudly, and even frowned. That made KO anxious, unable to stand still. And the whole care session became a tiring battle of wits. Later, I understood that, if you are stressed, your dog will be stressed too. So, before every brushing or bathing, I take a deep breath, smile at him, and think, this isn't a chore, this is time together. Mistakes are inevitable, especially when you're learning from scratch, without supervision, but those mistakes, if looked at with honesty and compassion, become valuable experiences. And each time you correct a mistake, you're one step closer to becoming a true companion to your pet. Create the smile behind the tail, and the art of delicate hair trimming like a show dog. I used to think, only dogs that compete need a smiley face, or neat ears, oval legs. But then one time I took KO to the park. A border collie breeder looked at him and asked, "Do you want to compete? Your tail looks neat and beautiful." That statement made me proud. Not because KO was a show dog, but because I knew I had raised him with all my heart and constantly learned to create the smiley face, tail shape, also known as the butt smile. You don't need to be a professional groomer. But you do need 3 elements: knowledge, tools, and patience. I usually start by defining exactly tail button, the last bone of the dog, where the hair grows thickly. Using my hand, I trace the middle point and lift the hair slightly to make it easier to handle. Next, I use thinning shears, shearing scissors, the safest tool for creating softness. Never use straight scissors in this area, because just one wrong line will reveal the cut as clearly as the outline. Error. My technique is, cut little by little. Always follow the natural curve of the butt. Cut one side, look, adjust, then cut the other side. Each time I cut, I brush down the hair to see how the shape is, if it needs adjusting. And a little secret, always keep good lighting behind you, to clearly see each hair, each tangled or misaligned patch. Once the tail area was shaped, I moved on to foot, especially hind leg. Dogs' legs usually grow hair downward. If you don't brush it up before trimming, you won't see the true shape. I use slicker brush to brush the hair back, then use scissors to trim along the shape of the leg, in a neat oval. If you cut too close to the skin, the hair will grow back, creating an itchy and tangled feeling very quickly. With forefoot, I am especially careful. The area between the toes is prone to accumulating dirt and bacteria. I use round-tipped trimming scissors to trim excess hair between fingers. Then use your hand to check the evenness of the cut under the foot, like a barber checking the contour of a customer's nape. A beautiful foot shape is a must, short, round and without any extra hair sticking out. Go to part this. This is where I was most nervous when I first started. One time I cut the fur on Candy's left ear a little too low, and it looked unbalanced for 2 weeks. Since then, I've stuck to the rule. The ear is a minimalist art form, only cut the excess strands that stick up. And absolutely do not touch the leather part of the ear. I usually use greyhound comb to brush the ear hair out. Then use scissors to gently trim small clumps. If the edges of the ear are too rough, I use a slicker brush to fluff them up and then lightly cut along the edges, like trimming the edges of a cookie. Another tip I learned from the very first video I watched: stand and look at the dog from behind and side after shaping. This way you can see the balance between the two sides, the curve of the tail, the droop of the ears, and the roundness of the feet. From there, you can make slight adjustments, instead of waiting until the cut is finished to discover the imbalance. I know, it sounds like a lot, but if you do this once a month, you'll start to see improvement. And when people say your dog looks like he just had a spa day, you can let out a little smile, because you know, it is effort, love, art from one's own hands and heart. Every touch is a trust building. I used to think that if I was patient, gentle, and did it right, the dog would naturally cooperate. But in reality, in the early days of taking care of KO, I was confused and even disappointed many times. One day, when I was about to cut his nails, he jumped up and ran under the table. Another day, while I was in the middle of a bath, KO jumped out of the tub, leaving me with a soaked shirt and a slippery floor. I began to ask myself, where did I go wrong? And then I realized, it didn't start with the scissors, the comb, or the shampoo. It started with how I first touched it. Touch is a nonverbal language between humans and dogs. Unlike humans, dogs don't take, good boy, or almost there, literally. They understand through our eyes, our breathing, and the pressure of our hands on their backs. I changed. I no longer forced Candy into the tub. I put my hand on her head first, stroking her a few times. I waited for her to look back. Then I led her out into the yard. Before turning on the dryer, I let her hear the sound from a distance, letting her hand touch the tube before it was hot. Before I clipped her nails, I held her paw for a few seconds, doing nothing, just holding her so she could get used to the feeling. I learned how to observe very small reaction, when its ears are down. It is worried, when its tail is tucked into its belly. It is scared, when it licks its lips continuously. It is stressed. At that time, I did not continue but stopped. I sat down, raised my hand to gently stroke its neck, and spoke in a slow and low voice. Sometimes, after only 5 minutes like that, it would come back and stand still, waiting for me to continue. Rewards are also effective, but not just cookies. I just use treats as a way to reinforce behavior, not to lure it into doing something it fears. For example, after cutting a nail, I praise and reward it immediately, then wait for it to stand still, then continue. One time I was too hasty and cut off the entire foot without stopping. Candy remembered it forever. And next time she wouldn't let me touch her feet again. One afternoon, I sat in the middle of the yard, holding a slicker brush, and Candy lay next to me. I didn't brush anything, just put the brush on his back and left him alone. I wanted him to understand, the toothbrush is not the rival. Then I brushed gently, each stroke very short. not forcing. No matter where I brushed, Vit's tail still wagged. Its ears still floppy, its eyes still half closed. Cooperation comes from trust built through small actions. Not because you are good at giving orders or have high technique, but because you respect their feelings, not rushing, not forcing, not getting angry. Gradually, Candy stopped running away whenever I brought her the shampoo. She waited by the door, walked up to the bathroom counter, and lifted her paws when I clipped her nails. It didn't happen overnight, it was the result of patience, gentleness, and mistakes I made. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest, patient, and always let your heart lead the way. Because with a dog, every time you touch it with gentleness, you are teaching it, you are safe with me, and only when that sense of security is built, everything else begins, from bathing, brushing, trimming, to even later sickness and old age. Touches that make me want to cry, out of happiness. Some memories are not far away. They are in the moment when a furry paw rests gently on your hand, while you are holding scissors. They are in the look of trust, on an afternoon full of flying hair, soap suds, and golden sunshine. And sometimes, they are in the moment of silence, when the dog stops struggling, and stands still, completely surrendered to you. I remember the first time I successfully clipped Kyo's nails. After 3 weeks of practice, every day, just holding the paw, holding the hand, opening the nail, then stopping, I finally got the first nail clipped. Just a very light click. He looked at me, didn't bark, didn't react, just blinked. I looked back, holding my breath, and then, he lay down, resting his chin on my leg, as if to say, okay, keep going. There were also clumsy moments, like the time I accidentally used the wrong end of the hairdryer. It was too hot. Kyo was startled, ran all the way to the back garden, and refused to come out until dark. I sat next to him all afternoon, apologizing, not with words, but with my hands, with a gentle stroke of the neck, with an unforced look. And when he put his head on my leg again, I almost cried. Another afternoon, it suddenly started to rain while I was washing her hair in the yard. I panicked and covered her with a towel, thinking she would be scared. But Kyo raised her head to the sky, sticking out her tongue to lick the drops of water falling from the eaves. She didn't shiver. On the contrary, her tail wagged. And I realized, sometimes, the things that make people anxious are the things that make dogs feel the most free. I remember the times when it was just trimmed neatly, then rolled around in the grass or waded into the ditch. All the effort came back to zero. But every time I laughed. Because I knew, taking care of it not to make it pretty, but to make it feel more comfortable living true to its instincts. One day, a neighbor's child came to visit. Seeing Candy lying snugly at my feet while I was brushing her fur, she cried out, "Uncle, why doesn't it run away like my dog?" I just smiled, because I knew, that didn't come from any training. It came from lots of gentle touches, many fruitless sessions of patience, and many times I learned to listen, even though Candy didn't say a word. I am not a professional dog trainer. I am just a normal person, choosing to take time to love a creature in the smallest things. Remove a tangle of fur, clean between the toes, dry the ears, and still your heart when it struggles. And then, I realized, when you really care, the dog will feel it. No words are needed. They just need to feel safe with you. They will resist when they are not ready. They will struggle when they are scared. But then, one day, they will willingly offer their paws for you to trim. And when that happens, you know you did the right thing. Not by the book, but by the heart. Small corner, big love. Create a grooming space at home. I used to think grooming only required scissors, a brush and a hose. But the more I tried and failed, the more I understood, space is also an important factor. Not only does it make it more comfortable for you to handle, but it also creates a sense of security and comfort for the dog, especially those who are being groomed for the first time. At first, I did everything in the bathroom. But it was slippery, cramped, and dark. Candy was always struggling, and my back hurt from bending over for so long. One day, I decided to transform a corner of the backyard, only as big as a desk, into a private care corner for Candy. And the magic begins from there. I chose a spot with natural light, away from drafts and not much noise. A wooden pallet with non-slip rubber lining became a makeshift grooming table. I bought another one, gentle hold attached to the edge of the table, not to tie me down, but to help Candy stand still when needed. Below, I placed a small tray for combs, scissors, nail clippers, towels, mini dryer. Everything is neat and within reach. I put one soft carpet right next to it, where I could sit or Candy could lie down to rest during the session. A small corner, but gradually becoming more private area every time I spread out the towel and put the toothbrush on it. Ko automatically walked over and stood in the right spot, as if he understood that this was our care time. I also tried opening one small speaker plays soothing music during long brushing sessions. Some days it was sunny. I played a gentle guitar tune, humming as I brushed. And Ko closed his eyes, his tail wagging. Some afternoons I sat there for hours. Not cutting his nails or drying them, just petting him, talking about random things about the day. If your house doesn't have a yard, don't worry. A corner balcony, even a laundry room, can all become ideal grooming spaces, as long as you ensure 3 factors: light, safe and quiet. I recommend you avoid places with strong chemical odors, detergents, paints, etc. Do not do it near where the dog eats and drinks, to avoid it feeling invaded. Always have clean towels, drinking water and a few small toys after each session to let the baby relax. One more tip. Spread a familiar smelling towel on the grooming table, maybe the towel you used to dry yourself off with after a bath. This scent is much more reassuring to your dog than a brand new, indifferent countertop. No need to invest too much. Your home grooming space is not a spa, but a place where you and your dog learn to listen, cooperate, and love each other more. And sometimes, just a toothbrush, a gentle look and a little music are enough to turn that small corner into a place to nurture great love. Mauling season, changing the way of love. One summer day, I sat picking up clumps of fallen feathers around the yard, sweeping and sighing. I wonder when this hair will stop falling out. Candy stood there, panting, her thick, shiny fur now matted in clumps from the heat. And I realized that taking care of a dog wasn't just a chore, it was a itinerary changes seasonally. Each season brings a different challenge to your dog's skin and coat. And if you understand that rule, you will no longer be surprised to see hair flying all over the house or your dog's skin peeling off in patches. You will one step ahead prepare a timely and appropriate care plan. Spring, the season of the first molt of the year. After a long winter, the thick undercoat needs to be removed to allow the body to regulate heat better. This is the ideal time to use undercoat rake, a special comb to remove dead hair underneath. I usually start by brushing in the opposite direction, gently but steadily, especially on the buttocks, stomach, neck and armpits. Each time I brush, a pile of hair rises like snow, but I take my time. I know that if I ignore it, in a few weeks it will stick together into tangles that are much harder to remove. Summer, the season of hot and muggy weather. This is the time of year when dogs are susceptible to heat stress. I never shave, because the outer layer not only provides insulation, but also protects the skin from the sun. Instead, I chose the option thinning, rather than trimming close. I use thinning shears to cut back the thickness, allowing the hair to breathe better. Shower early in the morning or late in the afternoon to avoid heat shock. And always use mild shampoo, does not dry skin. Autumn, the time when skin is prone to dryness and itching. When the weather starts to dry, I notice moisturizes skin and fur with a specialized conditioner or no rinse spray. I don't shower too often, about every 2 to 3 weeks is enough, depending on how active I am. This is also a good time to check tiny pimples, because the changing weather makes it easy for bacteria to grow in closed areas such as between the toes or under the armpits. Winter, the challenge of cold and damp. I always dry thoroughly after bathing, not leaving the fur damp as it can easily cause the dog to catch a cold. If it's cold, I just dry clean with a towel. Dry bath powder or a warm towel, unless absolutely necessary. Use water. I also increase brush weekly, to stimulate circulation under the skin, keeping the fur smooth and warm. And don't forget to check heel, toe and foot pad, as they tend to dry out on cold days. There is no one-size-fits-all grooming schedule. Some babies need brushing every day, some only every week. But the most important thing is, you understand your dog's body. Me, I choose to listen. When Candy licks her paws constantly, I know I need to check her paw pads. When she spends more time in the shade, I know her fur is getting too thick. And when she snuggles up to me when it gets cold, I know it's time to give her a gentle massage with natural coconut oil, to nourish her fur and keep her warm with love. Every season that passes is a new time for me to learn something new. And I believe If you persistently pay attention to every little change, not only will you raise a healthy dog, but you will also foster a strong, unspoken bond. Choose shampoo and conditioner not to make your dog smell great, but to make it feel safe. I used to think that anything labeled for dogs was good. But one time, after trying a shampoo with a strong scent, Candy scratched nonstop for 3 days. I was scared and took her to the vet. The vet said, "It's not a serious allergy. It's just that her skin can't stand the chemical scent." And from then on, I understood every skin is a world. And choosing a dog grooming product isn't just about choosing the scent you like. Actually, dogs don't need to smell. They need to feel comfortable. Before choosing any shampoo or conditioner, I always ask 3 questions. What type of skin is it? Have you recently had unusual hair loss, dandruff, or itching? Do I really need to use a product with a strong smell, or is it just a habit of the breeder? There are many skin types in dogs, just as in humans. Normal skin. The easiest type to care for. I usually choose products with ingredients natural, low foaming, and no strong scents. Gentle oatmeal, aloe vera, and green tea extracts work well. Candy had this skin type as a child, and I still remember the faint scent of my first oatmeal shampoo, as light as the scent of a sun-dried cotton blanket. Oily skin. Dogs are very active. Their fur gets greasy quickly and is prone to dust. For this type of skin, I don't choose a strong, oil control shampoo, but choose a product pH balance. Usually the type that has activated charcoal or diluted apple cider vinegar. Both deep cleansing and gentle. But most importantly, reasonable bathing frequency. Should not be more than once a week unless really dirty. Dry, sensitive or allergic skin. This is the group that needs the most care. I absolutely avoid products with synthetic fragrances, dyes, or alcohol. Instead, I use shampoo specialized moisturizer. Sometimes add a few drops of pure coconut oil or chamomile essential oil. Sometimes I also boil a pot of cool herbal water like green tea. Grapefruit leaves, perilla, to rinse at the end. Not fragrant, but clean and gentle, and the dog stops scratching. An important note, do not use human shampoo on dogs. Despite being babies, the pH of human skin and dog skin are very different. Dog skin has a neutral pH of 6.2 to 7.4, while human skin is 5.5. This difference makes human shampoos damage the dog's skin barrier, resulting in dryness, flaking, or mild inflammation. About conditioner, I use this type no need to rinse for gentle at-home care. Contains panthenol, vitamin E. Jojoba oil helps smooth fur, reduce static and make it easy to comb. But most importantly, no product residue left on hair, because if accumulated for a long time, it will create a film that clogs the skin. Still spray? I choose mild herbal extracts. No alcohol. And only use them when absolutely necessary, for example, after a dry day, or when my fur is feeling dry. Sometimes I even mix my own, a few drops of coconut oil, water, and a dash of chamomile extract, shake it in a small spray bottle, and use it for a week. Not only does it soothe my fur, but it also makes every brushing session a mental therapy session for both of us. Choosing the right product won't make your dog smell like a spa, but it will help them healthy from skin to fur, and trust you more every time you touch. I don't need a smelly dog. I need a dog that can lie next to me all afternoon without scratching, without getting upset, and without looking at me with skeptical eyes every time I pick up the shampoo bottle. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully the sharing in the video has brought you useful information and new inspiration. If you find the video interesting and valuable, don't forget to click like and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. Please share this video with friends and relatives to spread good values together. Thank you for supporting the channel. All of your contributions are very important to us. See you again in the next videos.